Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 42 of Boutique Talk. My name is Jake Boston, otherwise known as Steelbook Obsessed on all your major social media platforms. And if you want to listen to all things physical media related, then you've come to the right place. Every episode, I have on a new guest to talk about their physical media journey. And tonight, my guest has been crafting physical media releases since 2010, which has garnered him over 50 Clio Awards for his work. Currently, he is the Vice President of Global Creative Advertising at Lionsgate and has helped launch the new website Lionsgate Limited. It is my pleasure to introduce Aaron Gershman to the podcast. Aaron, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Jake? Happy to
I'm
be
doing
here.
great. I'm kind of still a little bit in shock that you said that you could come on here. I've loved Lionsgate's work for so long in the Steelbook realm, so I'm excited to have you on, and I'm excited to talk some Lionsgate Limited.
So appreciate it. I've been a fan of your channels for a long time, and honestly, the entire community, it's something that I think a lot of other studios kind of disregard. But at Lionsgate, the amount of people who pay attention to your channel, to the subreddits for Steelbooks and boutique Blu-rays and 4Ks, like honestly, like Lionsgate listens, and I think that's been a huge part of our strategy, um, and informed a lot of the decisions that we've made. I mean, like even little things like we stopped putting, for the most part, the title of the movie on our steelbooks. A while ago, that was something that everybody did, and I think a lot of the studios still do, where they've got the title of the movie on it. But we had seen somebody put something on Reddit that was like, I don't want to see Starry Night with the word Starry Night on it.
Right.
Like, and that's how I've used steelbooks, is like they're expressions of art, they're works of art, and they don't need the type on there. So that was something, we saw that comment and it changed our strategy. And then we worked on like, how can we get every single word off of this thing that we can possibly get off of it? I think there are, like, Warner Brothers, for instance, puts full billing blocks, like the credit block, on the back of their steelbooks, which is such an eyesore. And so, we talked to our legal team and they were like, you need this small legal line. And we were like, okay, well, we don't even want that on the back. Can we put it on the bottom? And so we started doing that. So honestly, like this community and the people that drive it have driven a lot of the decisions behind the way that we approach our art and build the creative. So,
and I'm glad
really happy to be discussing it.
I'm glad you said art, because when it comes to Lionsgate, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is the amazing artists that you hire to make your great steelbook releases. I have one of the new ones from Lionsgate Limited here, The Apocalypse Now. Here's a great example of showcasing how, you have the title and it's great when you're trying to advertise what you're actually selling. But on a pure art perspective, I mean, this sucker just absolutely shines, and it's pretty much like saying what all it needs to on its own just by looking at it. I love that with Lionsgate releases, and I love that you are starting your own website, Lionsgate Limited. You said you love boutique labels and kind of looking all over physical media and social media and all that type of stuff. Why did you decide to launch Lionsgate Limited in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there's a few things that went into it, which is we had a really great relationship with Best Buy, and I think Target stopped selling physical media, Best Buy stopped selling physical media, and we believe in the power of physical media for the long term, and especially in the steelbook space. I think you've seen physical media across the board kind of dwindle, but steelbooks have been holding strong. And before I was in this business, I worked in music, and I remember being at the labels when they all kind of made fun of vinyl, and now that's keeping the entire industry afloat.
Correct.
And I really equate steelbooks in a lot of ways to vinyl, because vinyl's not necessarily convenient. It's way easier to just ask Alexa to play your music for you. But if you love music, it is the best possible version that you can have.
Right.
And it looks cool, like you see the art in this large format, and you can put it on display. Like this is my movie nerd room, but I have a music nerd room
Mm.
that's full of vinyl that are, covering the walls basically. And I think steelbooks give you a similar experience. So we believe in the power of physical media, and we wanted to make sure that we had an avenue to sell physical media, no matter what. Right now we are still selling steelbooks with Walmart and with Amazon, who both of them have been great partners, and we hope to do a lot more with them. But you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we thought we would be doing steelbooks with Best Buy for a really long time, and now we're not. So
Yeah.
that's
From what I've heard, the rug just got kind of pulled from everybody there without a lot of knowledge and not a lot of time
yeah,
to react either. So
yeah,
I totally get that that's kind of nerve wracking to see, and you don't want that to happen to yourself. And I personally don't want to either. I love collecting physical media. That's why I have it behind me. I love all the artwork behind you. We talked a little bit about that before we recorded. My
yeah,
artwork, my wall, I have a steelbook wall with magnets that I put it up there just because I kind of believe what you believe. I think steel books are the best way to showcase your love of a certain film just because they're able to make that absolutely pop. And I've been collecting for a very long time. And
yeah,
I definitely have a lot of Lionsgate steel books. I know that I've been collecting for so long that I have a lot of the ones that have went out of print. Um, your Knives Out, your La La Lands. There's a whole bunch that went out of print.
yeah.
I've noticed on Lionsgate Limited that a couple of those, like Apocalypse Now, like I showed, it was never a steel book, but it was
Right.
a big set that went out of print. A picture in the background here, Reservoir Dogs, that did, I want to say, sell out. And now you're
Yeah.
selling a new version of it in a different art color scheme,
Yeah.
but still the same steel book overall, just a little bit different. Do you plan on doing more out of print releases on Lionsgate Limited?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, one of the things behind Lionsgate Limited that we've decided is that we want it to be a place where it's the only place you can get certain items.
Hmm.
We don't really want to repeat ourselves. At the same time, I think there are some great movies that, like you said, have gone out of print, and it's really tough. Like, I really believe in the value of a first pressing.
Hmm.
That's why, like, I think you've noticed this. I feel
Yes.
like, yeah. So we worked with Skinevo to figure out a way to watermark so it says first pressing on our stuff.
And I don't know if I can show it on here, but it's always,
It's
what do
hard
you
to
call
see.
this? I've always had questions on what this part is called. This part is the spine. What do you know what this would be called? Because I try to point this out and I'm like, I have no terminology of what this part is, just where you open up the steel book.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the closure. I don't know. Um,
But yes, that's where first pressing is. I can't, it's been a few years since you guys introduced that into the marketplace, but
Absolutely.
I love that. Again, with the collector mentality kind of in mind, vinyls had a lot of first pressings.
Yeah. So I think what we've always wanted to do is preserve the value of the first pressing.
Hmm.
Um, but if for some reason you missed out on that first pressing, I I do want people to be able to have a copy that is not less than. And so that's why we came up with these color variant ideas,
Sure.
taking a page out of the Mondo playbook. I love Mondo posters. I've got a couple here,
Hmm.
um, and a bunch more in a portfolio behind me. Um, and the color variants, I think, are kind of an interesting concept where it's like you have the main poster, and then there's this variant edition if you're a completist, or if you just prefer the variant over the original. So
Hmm.
I think we just felt like if we're gonna do these new Tarantino steelbooks, there's a lot of people who missed out on Reservoir Dogs. We want to do it again, but we want it to be something new. And I think if we just started from scratch and just built new artwork for no reason, that would really piss people off, because it's like, oh, now I definitely have to get both.
Hmm.
Some people would feel like that. Where this way, it's like it's a different colorway, and if you want to get it to have both, you can. Or if you missed out on the first one, now you can get it. Um, so that's kind of the thought behind the different colorways. We're not going to do straight reprints on Lionsgate Limited.
Sure.
We will do variants, but for the most part, the things on Lionsgate Limited will be fully exclusive, and they'll be in really small quantities. So,
Perfect. That was, we're going organically into some of the questions that I wrote down. That's perfect. I again, kind of you were talking about how a lot of people in your industry kind of follow the goings on in social media. Well, I also talk with people within the YouTube space, the Instagram space, all that stuff. Someone I was talking with about Lionsgate Limited when it first started was Ken from Mid Level Media. I talk with him all the time. Great guy. One
He's
of his
awesome.
questions. Yeah, I like him as well. Good. I'm glad you know who he is, Aaron. Awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't have this without Ken. And so
There you go. Yeah, the Clio. We'll get a little bit into that as well.
yeah,
But Ken's question was, how limited are the steelbooks going to be on your website?
yeah. Yeah, they're definitely a lot more limited.
Do you know about a number of like how many, let's say Reservoir Dogs, when that first got released, how many were pressed to begin with?
Like the original Best Buy version,
Yeah.
that was probably somewhere around 15.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think the Best Buy versions we would do a lot. Like we did 20,000 of American Psycho.
Hmm.
And we still reprinted it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, the minimum number of steelbooks you can possibly make is 4,000. Um, so I think some of these Lionsgate releases will go as low as that. Um, Especially like there's a lot of really niche titles that we want to get into.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think a lot of titles that we floated by some of the bigger retailers, and they're like, I don't think there's a market for that.
Hmm.
I think, you know, now we've got a chance to see if there is or not on
Perfect.
our own, which is exciting. But what I would say for these two Kill Bills and Jackie Brown, for instance, um, those are 10,000 or less, which
Mhm.
is pretty small considering
Yeah.
like, you know, there's a huge market for Tarantino, and we probably could have sold more, but we want to keep it limited. And honestly, uh, like I said, that just increases the value of that first pressing, which I think is important for collectors.
Right. Man, yeah, I assumed at least the Tarantino ones, maybe you would kind of fluctuate on titles that you had and make more or less out of them. But I kind of like the fact that there's not going to be a lot. And I think collectors will kind of like that too, to kind of grab stuff as quickly as they can. I don't know, this is not Steelbook related. Vinegar Syndrome just had a release with The Keep, and
Yeah,
they released like 12, 14,000 of those, and they sold within like 36 hours. So
that's amazing.
I'm very curious to see what the Tarantinos do for you, because I love Tarantino. I think he's my
Yeah,
favorite working director currently, and his whole
absolutely,
filmography is amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that vinegar syndrome stuff is incredible. Like
Hmm.
they do such great work. There's so many boutique labels that we took a lot of inspiration from. And you know, I think like you said, we'll be doing some releases that are not steelbooks,
Hmm.
but I think that's been kind of our bread and butter. Um, there's just something about a steelbook that I think because it's on metal, it just feels like it's built to last in a way
Sure.
that, you know, plastic doesn't. Like
Hmm.
plastic just feels cheap.
I am curious to see, now that you have the nugget in my brain, what non steelbook releases you have coming down the pipeline at Lionsgate Limited. I'm trying to think of, maybe it might be more like a box set situation, like you did with the Conversation, like completely boutique box set worthy, or just maybe even go down like the premium slipcover route. I don't know where you're gonna go, but I can't wait to find out. It's gonna be great. But again, with like a slipcover with the box set, art still reigns supreme on all of these, and it's one of the main
Yeah.
factors why I like to collect physical media. Just new artwork that either I fell in love with the original poster on a release, or just new artwork in general that I'm like, yeah, that totally captures what you guys are trying to go for, and just the love of the movie shines through.
Yeah.
I love the steel books that you guys released for the Kill Bills, Jackie Browns. I think all of them look great. I also love the slip covers that you guys decided to go with as well.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah.
have
There's
there
some
been?
Easter eggs hidden in those.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can't wait. What I love about Lionsgate is that you guys make videos of your steel books, doing like a whole 360 before people buy them. I feel
Yeah.
like more people need to jump on that bandwagon that sells steel books, because that's the best way to kind of see every ounce of the steel book before you actually have it in your hands.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of like as a steelbook buyer myself, I think one of my biggest problems is I'll see like a cool cover and be like, holy shit, I have to get this.
Hmm.
And then I'll open it up and there's no art on the inside.
Yes.
Like when people do that, that's insane.
Hmm.
You know, where it's generic discs, which happens a lot.
I hate that.
Uh,
That's the thing that makes me so upset, is when it's just like the title on a black disc. I'm just like, you're putting no effort into this whatsoever. Sorry, big
yeah.
gripe of mine. Yeah.
Yeah. And the title is actually like knocked out to the silver of the disc so they can get
Yes.
away with one color instead of two colors to save those like 3 pennies.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's maddening.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think for us building those videos, we found a really talented 3D artist who built a model of a steelbook in 3D, so he can spin it around. He's made those videos for us, and then our product shots. It's funny, uh, the shots that some of the other studios use are
Hmm.
so disproportionate. Like the
Yes.
spine is humongous, and
Hmm.
it doesn't look right.
It's hard
So
to tell what you're buying, which in a space
absolutely,
where retail is kind of shrinking, that is becoming more and more important.
yeah. No, I mean, I think showing the full picture of the releases, that's been something that's important to us.
Hmm.
Also, when we started doing these slipcover reveals, we wanted to show how those work. Like, I don't know if it's coming across on Kill Bill 1, but um, when that sword comes off, the top of
Hmm.
Lucy Liu's head comes with it,
Oh, does
which
it?
I
I
think
did not
is
notice that.
so
No.
awesome.
Huh. That's great.
So yeah, I mean, we wanted to kind of carry over the tradition that we had started with the ear on Reservoir Dogs. So
Hmm.
um,
Perfect.
yeah, so the top of Lucy Liu's head comes off when the slipcover comes off.
That's great.
Daryl Hannah's good eye comes off on Kill Bill 2. And then Jackie Brown, it's not quite as much it's a different type of movie than the other ones. It's not really about the over the top violence. So Jackie Brown, the slipcover reveal is the bag switch. Um,
Mm,
so
nice.
yeah, if
Very
you
good.
see on when the slipcover's on, she has one. When it's off, she's got the other. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I love these movies too. And honestly, that's what drives a lot of this stuff. The first real reveal that we did like this was the Knives Out release that you mentioned a while ago.
Hmm.
Um,
This
uh,
is, I have it pulled across because I'm
yeah,
hoping that this might get a reprint at some point because I know this sold out like crazy. And
yeah.
this person on a personal level on my TikTok page, this is like the first video that I made with the swapping of the slipcover that went viral. It got 500,000 views in like a
Oh my
week.
god,
It's just the little touches that you guys do. I absolutely love.
dude, it's so funny because there was a time before I was at Lionsgate, I was at Fox, and I
Hmm.
wanted to do an Easter egg release like that. And I basically had to put a PowerPoint presentation together to
Hmm.
these people to say like, and I cited, did you ever buy Kid A, the CD when it came out by Radiohead?
Oh God, I did, yes, but I don't know if it was a repressing or not. I don't know
Okay,
if I bought
so
the original or not.
back then, CDs had or jewel cases had those black trays, and you could snap those off. And if you did on Kid A, underneath it was a second lyric booklet. So they hid it. And like I remember finding out about that, this was 2000, so the internet wasn't really what it was
Mhm.
back then. Somebody told me, and I remember like being on the subway. I was in Boston, and I couldn't wait to get home to grab my CD to take the tray off to find this hidden lyric booklet.
Yeah.
And so I looked that up, and people were still talking about it almost 20 years later. And so
Mhm.
like at Fox, I had to build this PowerPoint presentation of like why we should do these types of things, and like look at like 20 years of engagement. Like people are still talking about this.
Right.
Um, and at Fox, people were like, nah, it's too much effort. Like, I don't think people care that much. And then when I got to Lionsgate, I pitched the idea of doing something just because Knives Out is that type of
Mhm.
movie where, there's clues and you're trying to
Yeah.
piece it
You solve the
together.
mystery, right, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I pitched to my boss, and it was like 2 words in. He's like, yes, absolutely.
That's
And
great.
so then, like, there were a few of us that were coming up with different ideas of how you could hide clues. And a woman named Joyce on the team came up with this concept, and we just all thought it was so brilliant. And we were curious, like, because steelbooks, like the manufacturing deadline on them, this is the one thing I hate about steelbooks is like we have to build them like 6 months in advance because they take
Mhm.
so long to make.
Right.
And we were just kind of thinking, like, is anybody going to find this? And then when we saw your video and some other videos like that, um, that was pretty fast. I would say like
Mhm.
within an hour of that first street date, videos came up, and so we were really excited that people got it and were engaging with it. So
Yeah. Well, it's a fun Easter egg, number one. And again, it's another reason why I love collecting physical media. You cannot recreate that any other way than actually physically having
absolutely,
it in your hand and going over it. It's yeah, it's great. And I love that you guys do that. And just you Lionsgate and slipcovers. I know there were steel books in the past that kind of did the slipcover beforehand. You guys
nice.
elevated the art of the slipcover in multiple ways, whether it be just like the reveal of La La Land from like that nighttime scene all the way to like the dream sequence, which I absolutely like, one of my favorite releases still to
That
this
one's
day,
great.
to a steelbook that I missed out on. And I'm so mad because I finally watched Sizu, and that
Oh yeah,
flip cover with like the knife going into his head, the side loading, I so good. So
nice.
perfect for that movie. I'm curious if in 2025 will we see any other evolutions within the slipcover? You don't have to
Yeah,
tell me what it is, but just like, are you guys always constantly thinking in your head, what can we do to kind of like change things around?
yeah. It's a great question because Mondo had started doing it where they would put the title treatment on the slipcover, and that was about it.
Hmm.
And then we started working in some of these Easter eggs, and that started to evolve. And I was worried, people are going to start doing this, and then we have to figure something else out. And then nobody did for years. It's like, okay, we'll just kind of corner the market on this. And then all of a sudden, Paramount,
Hmm.
they started with like I think it was Event Horizon,
That sounds right.
um, and they started doing it a little bit. And now it's like most Paramount releases. I've seen Warner Brothers do it. I've seen Universal do it. So
Hmm.
yeah, we have been talking about like what are new things that we can do that are different. The side loading slipcase I think is really interesting.
Hmm.
We've started getting more into lenticulars. We've done a couple of those now that
The
just came
kickboxer
out.
one is so good.
I love that one.
I did that for so long because lenticulars can either like do something really well for a release or just kind of not do much and like be like a mute point on a release, which I've never understood why you'd want to do that on a lenticular. You guys have
Yeah,
a lot of moving pieces to it. It looks great. And you also did Stir of Echoes as well with kind of like the eye closing and whatnot and the person appearing. Yeah, that looks great.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny because the last lenticular we had done before that, we did this Schwarzenegger two movie collection.
Yes.
Um,
Terminator 2 and Total Recall. I have that one. Yeah.
absolutely, and I
Mhm.
love that lenticular.
I do
Just
too.
um, there's an artist that we partnered with on that, Kyler Smith. Kyler Smith is so great. If you get a chance to follow him on Instagram, I think you would dig his stuff because not only does he make great movie posters, he does a lot of lenticular posters, and I think he's kind of at the forefront on that.
Mhm.
But the thing that he does that is so fun, I have a few of them here. Let me see if I have them. He does like trading cards.
Hmm.
Um, uh, man, here's one. Scott Pilgrim is one of my favorite movies ever, as you can see.
I see the poster. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he made this lenticular trading card,
Hmm.
um, which you can't really see it right now, but
It looks like
basically,
he's kind
like,
of popping out of the card a little bit. It gives more dimension pops.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
the music notes are coming off of it. Um, but he does these for like, man, I know I have some more of them that are so cool. Um, anything you can think of, here we go.
Mhm.
So like, do you remember the episode of Seinfeld where like they played softball?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
So he'll just make like a
That's
trading
great.
card for
Yeah.
anything you can think of. Here's a way better lenticular that he did. This is Fight Club,
Oh, that
uh,
looks great.
and
Yeah.
so you can see it's transitioning.
Yeah.
It's really not showing up on. There you
That
go.
one's showing the most out of any of the other ones, though.
Yeah, there you can tell that's Brad Pitt,
Hmm.
and there's Edward Norton. So, um, yeah, I love his stuff, and honestly, like, man, before I started working at Lionsgate, Instagram was like a place where I would connect with my friends and see what they were up to, and now it's just all artists. Like I
Yeah.
used to follow like 200, 300 people. Now my Instagram account, you can see I follow like over 3,000 and they're
Hmm.
almost all artists
Right.
because we're trying to find folks to do these types of things that are different. I mean, honestly, like having been at other studios, that's another thing that drives me nuts about standard steelbook releases is like they just pick up things that are lying around, and there's
Mhm.
not really a lot of thought that goes into them.
Mhm.
Um, it like for instance, I think a lot of Disney stuff. Well, Disney's starting to do a lot better stuff. I don't know. Do you have any of the Disney Plus steelbooks?
I
Because those are
do,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. A lot of those, I think they're all done by the same artist, Attila Sarska, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
Yeah. Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Who's incredible.
Those have been
Um,
great to see.
we're working on one with him right now that I can't wait
Nice.
for that to come out. But yeah, I would say some of the other studios, they just basically are like, oh, this was an international poster.
Mhm.
Now it's our steelbook. And it's just recycled and there's no real thought that goes into it. The boutique labels are the ones that are really doing a good job of partnering with artists and creating like just cool custom artwork,
Mhm.
which I love. Like I just think that's the best thing out there. And you know, like I said, Mondo was really driving that for so long.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was this weird shakeup there where they basically, their entire creative team got fired
Well, they got bought
or
out
laid
by
off.
Funko, right? And then yeah, then yes, that was
So
very unfortunate.
yeah,
Mhm.
so some of those guys started Mutant, which is a great
Mhm.
poster label, and then one of the old Mondo guys started Coda, which is fantastic. They've done some amazing releases, but I don't think that there's, Bottleneck has kind of stepped in. Um, I don't think that anybody is really filling that hole that was created by the creative loss of Mondo, which is a bummer.
Agreed. I feel like you said, it kind of branched off into a lot of different categories instead of having like one main area that people really focused on when it comes to great original art like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
One of my favorite artists that you guys did work with is Mexi Funk. I've had him on the
oh
podcast
yeah,
before. Does amazing work and does a lot of great, amazing work for physical media. So I'm
yeah,
hoping he's got something in the cards with Lionsgate here at some point this year.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, he is just a character. I have to watch that episode because he's so funny and
He's got a lot of story.
clever.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and just the nicest dude. Yeah, I've got Ghost in the Shell. That was the first one we did with him
Hmm.
over there. But when I was at Fox, um, he had worked on this this rebrand for Halloween or Dia de los Muertos.
Yes, the day of the deadline was so good. Yes. Hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't work on that personally, but I remember the team that did.
Hmm.
Um, they just knocked that out of the park. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Agreed. And
So
Best Buy was selling those for like $10 for the steel books. I know
crazy.
there wasn't artwork on the back or the
Yes.
inside. It was kind of whatever, but $10 for a great looking front cover steel book, I was more than okay with picking all those up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Orlando's one of the first people I called when I got to Lionsgate. And so, yeah, shortly after Knives Out, he did Ghost in the Shell for us, that was I think the first one where we really had a really intricate slipcover.
Hmm.
And Orlando, he's a big part of that.
Nice.
So,
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I like
yeah,
his artwork quite a bit, so I'm glad to hear that there's more coming down the pipeline for sure.
yeah,
My favorite
that
one he
was
did for you
incredible.
guys was T2. I love that steel book so
Oh
much.
my God. Uh, and one of my favorite aspects of that one was that it was him and Tracy Ching, who I love.
Hmm.
The two of them are such different artists, but they collaborated where, she did the portrait of Arnold and then he did the T800 underneath.
Yeah.
And they just lined up in such a cool way. The two of them, they use Adobe Illustrator rather than Photoshop, which is what most of these artists use.
Hmm.
And Adobe Illustrator is like a logo program. Like if you had a t-shirt business, you'd be making t-shirts with Illustrator. So the fact that the two of them can make the intricate and dynamic art that they can with that program
Hmm.
is crazy. So yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite steelbook that we've ever done personally.
It looks so good. Hmm.
Um, and honestly, like I would say that's like a top 3 movie of all time for me.
Yeah.
Like I've got the endo arm and then I've got the head over there too. But putting Miles Dyson on the interior,
Loved it.
that's my
Yeah.
favorite part of that release
Yeah.
because he's the unsung hero of that movie. I mean,
Yeah, the whole like last breath thing that he does in that movie, love,
it
love it
kills
so
me.
much. Yeah, it's so good.
Yes, honestly, like he's the one with the most to lose. He had this family, this
Hmm.
amazing house, he sacrificed himself, where like, God, that just killed me. So Tracy did that spread. She did this Big Lebowski poster. Tracy
Mhm.
Chang, another great follow on Instagram. We did Kick Ass with her. There may be some more coming from Kick Ass. And then what else have we done with her? Oh, this last year we did Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then
Yeah.
she did Hunger Games 1 through 4. So
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
that's another set that you guys did that you focused a lot on the artists that actually put out that release. There were 10 different female artists that did all
Oh
the artwork
yes,
in that box set. It's so yeah, very cool idea that I feel like that idea would come from some sort of boutique label, but it's nice to see a major actual player making movies come out with a release like that.
yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like
Yeah.
um, the fact that people like yourself appreciate it,
Mhm.
that is so satisfying because, dude, we spend so much time
I
on
bet.
these things.
I bet.
It's a lot. It's a lot of time and effort. Where,
Mhm.
like I said, being at other places where it's like, all right, let's look at all the posters that have come out. That's the front cover. We'll put a still on the inside, and then we'll put like a symbol on the back, and that's your
Mhm.
steelbook.
Right.
Like that was the formula at so many places. Like if you ever see like a little badge on the back, not even like a real back design where it's just like a little symbol or something,
Mhm.
that's the cop out of all cop outs. And so we're trying to avoid doing stuff like that, trying to push physical media forward. That's honestly um, what we want to do, and not only keep it alive, but grow it. Which honestly, like I mentioned that subreddit, I remember bringing up that subreddit in a meeting when there were 5,000 people on r/steelbooks,
Mhm.
and now it's over 50, which is crazy.
Right.
Um, and that's registered users. There's probably 5 times as many lurkers, if not more. So
Mhm. Yeah. I
it's growing.
Yes, and I think that's a good thing to kind of focus in on is that there's been a lot of kind of outcry from like the Best Buy kind of getting out of the way, Target not carrying physical media. Really, the only players that are left are Walmart, really as like a main major retailer to buy physical media physically in your
Yeah.
hand. How do you guys go about now that you have the Lionsgate Limited website? What releases will be under that banner as opposed to what releases might be to your Walmarts or Amazons of the world?
So really good question. And I think we're still trying to figure that out. I do think, like I said, you're going to see more niche stuff on Lionsgate Limited. Um, things that probably wouldn't have found a home elsewhere. Um, I do think that we have this partnership with Quentin Tarantino, who I feel the same way you feel. One of the greatest to ever do it,
Yeah.
and we're hoping to put out some more Tarantino steelbooks.
I
Uh,
I'm gonna cut in for just a second. Just got
yeah,
done
please.
watching. January is like 4K Tarantino month because not only do you guys have the four movies that you have coming out, Arrow Video also has Inglorious Bastards coming out. Just got done watching that. Oh my god, like, the set looks amazing. The transfer is phenomenal. I can't wait
Yeah,
for people to get their hands on it. So I love that there's so much love from Quentin Tarantino coming out this month that I can just binge. I'm so
yeah.
excited for it.
Oh man, it's a shame. Like I really want to get that release. It's a shame that Lionsgate doesn't have the full catalog because I would love to do you know corresponding steelbooks in this same style for every single one of his
Hmm.
films. Um, like these 4 artists that you see here on the screen, like they're all like I would consider kind of founding Mondo artists,
Hmm.
and just some of my favorites. You've got Matt Taylor did Kill Bill 1, Oliver Barrett did 2, Ken Taylor did Jackie Brown, Phantom City, did Reservoir Dogs, but Martin Anson, who did this Ghost in the Shell, which is one of my favorite posters ever. I would I would put him on that Mondo founders level. Um, yeah, honestly, if we could do all 10 of Tarantino's movies in this style, I would be so psyched.
I would too.
Um,
I'll take
yeah,
as many releases of Quentin Tarantino's catalog as I can possibly get. There are some movies where I will just collect as many physical media copies that are different, that have great artwork like this as I possibly can. I think I have like 8 or 9 different steel books of John Carpenter's The Thing because it's my favorite movie of all time. Scott
Nice.
Pilgrim, there's a lot of releases too. That's my favorite Edgar Wright film, so I've got a lot of different
What's your
editions of his.
favorite though? Because I feel like there's a lot of bad Scott Pilgrim releases.
My
I don't want to talk shit about anybody else, but
my favorite one, I'm a fan. It's I don't know if I can grab it from right here or not. It's like the anime inspired, like the
oh
manga
yes,
inspired
absolutely.
release. I like that one a lot.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's super
Yeah,
cool.
but yeah, there are a lot of just kind of subpar steelbook releases for Scott Pilgrim, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. But yeah, the one with like the artwork from the mangas, which I've read and really love, just kind of the meshing of both those worlds onto one actual release was great.
My first day, I used to work at Universal. My first day on the job, they gave me those mangas and they were like, you should read all these. We're going to be working on this movie.
Nice.
And I was like, just sitting in an office reading like 7 graphic novels and like, this is the greatest job ever. I was so psyched.
Yeah, what homework?
Uh,
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was one steelbook where I feel like there was a guitar on the back rather than
Yeah,
a bass. And I'm just
yeah.
like, what are you
Yeah, you
doing?
being a music guy, I bet that drove you crazy. Yeah, I
Oh,
my brain went to the 7 evil X's that were on the guitar. I'm like, okay, that's a
yeah,
little unique. I don't think I've ever noticed that it was a guitar instead of a bass.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I hear you. I've double dipped on a lot of things myself where it's
Hmm.
like if you love the movie, like I totally get it. I know some people are like, you know, think that's a sin or whatever, but sometimes you just got to have it, and I totally get that.
Yes.
So,
I
um,
wouldn't have as many movies as I did. Like a lot of them are just single, whatever. But the movies that I love, I want to make sure that I have a lot of different copies of. Because again, for steelbooks specifically, I can just put them on my steelbook wall here and have them displayed whenever I'm going to actually watch a movie downstairs.
yeah,
For me, it's just like a comfort feeling almost, just to kind of be around that type of stuff, especially for movies that you love.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And honestly, like Lionsgate Limited, um, I'm a collector, but there are so many people that are working on this initiative
Hmm.
that are all collectors that honestly, like, it's, it sounds cheesy to say, but it's for collectors by collectors. Like seriously, that is the ethos behind Lionsgate Limited.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say there's a team of about 25 people that have been working on it, and it's people that are super passionate about movies. You've got art nerds like myself, transfer nerds,
Hmm.
um, and like that's another thing that we've been wanting to get into is like actually crediting on these releases the people who make these transfers.
Yes.
Um, like we've been crediting these artists, and it's funny
Hmm.
because Mexifunk puts his signature on everything he does,
Yeah.
and I've been at places where the legal team is like, oh, you can't do that, like they can't
That's
claim
terrible.
ownership of this piece, whatever. And like we encourage artists, like if you want to sign it, like put your
Hmm.
signature on
That's
it.
great.
So yeah, we've been toying with this idea of like creating these collector cards that would come inside that have credits for the people who do the transfer,
Mm.
because these people are artists as well. Like
Yeah.
honestly, um, we all know what a bad transfer is, and looks like. I'm
Hmm.
not going to point any fingers. I've already done too much of that today. But there are certain transfers out there that people still talk about how bad they are,
Hmm.
and it would be great if some of those could be redone. But we're focused on the new transfers that we're able to take charge of, making
Hmm.
them as good as we possibly can,
That's
because
great.
that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. No, agreed. Physical media, I like to physically own it, but I also like to watch it in the best quality that I possibly can. I
Yeah,
can't even tell you the amount of times I've streamed content and it just starts looking pixelated or just it does not come through clearly. And that drives me
yeah,
crazy. I don't have a lot of free time as is. So when I
yeah.
do and I want to watch a movie, I want to watch it in the best quality I possibly can. So
I
I
totally get
love
that.
that idea of crediting the people who are behind the scenes making this disc for you. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Um, there were one other idea that I'm hoping makes its way onto Lionsgate Limited site. We talked a little bit about the Hunger Games box set, but just
Yeah.
box sets in general. One of my holy grail pieces that I show off anytime I can is this Rambo set.
Oh, dude, I
This
have
thing
that
is
right
a
here.
beaut, and I'm so happy to have it in the collection because it gives the credit that Rambo kind of deserves. Like, this franchise cannot have a better release than what this is. Do
Man,
you have do you have any idea if anything
I'll be
like
more like
this
that.
will be released for more franchises that kind of Lionsgate has down the pipeline somewhere?
That's a great question because honestly, that was a huge labor of love. That's like
Hmm.
one of my favorite projects we've ever worked on.
Yeah.
And I think for us, the unfortunate thing that happened was it didn't sell well. And it
Really?
eventually sold out, but
Hmm.
at first it was kind of sitting there. I think, people were complaining it was priced too high. And part of that is because it comes in that library case. That's what Skenevo, the manufacturer, calls that style of case.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And so I I think the subsequent box sets that we've done, you mentioned the Hunger Games one, we did a Twilight one.
Yeah.
We didn't do them in that style of case,
Hmm.
um, because we could do a cheaper case, and that means we could offer a lower price to consumers,
Right.
and those sold a little bit better as a result. Also, the problem with that Rambo one, so many people were complaining about them being dented or dinged up, those
Because of the
cases.
metal case. I can see that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I think Skenevo has eventually solved the problem, and they ship them differently than they used to.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that was a big concern. So we've moved away from that style of case, but it's a bummer because I feel like if you just said it, like it's the definitive collection, and
Mhm.
if you have if you want to like line up on your shelves the definitive collections, they should all be the same size and the same style.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a bunch of those steelbook sets above me right there, the ones that are kind of encased in the metal packaging,
yeah,
just because I feel like steel books are made out of steel. It's kind of nice to have the package made out of semi the same material. And I think
yeah,
kind of like what it is with the steel book. I think the artwork absolutely pops off of packaging like this. I hope that because like you said, your past couple box sets have kind of gone away from there. I was always curious why that was. I didn't know if it was
yeah,
a cost issue, which it sounds like it is, or just kind of a quality concern as well. But I can't lie, I miss the heyday of having box sets like
yeah.
this for steelbooks. They were so nice when they were around.
Man, it's good to hear you say that because, yeah, I think that's there's some feedback that we see that we're like, oh, it's clear people like this, and we should start doing it this way.
Hmm.
And then some, it's like kind of mixed, and it's hard to say. So maybe we'll bring back the library case because I agree, those are cool, and the padding inside just makes it
Yes.
feel super substantial.
Yeah. Makes it
Um,
feel like a quality product. Like that's my thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I totally
So
agree.
yeah, that's where my vote goes. But I also have the Twilight box set and the Hunger Games box set. So
Yeah,
I'm just a sucker for a nice box set for franchises, I guess. So
yeah,
Lionsgate has a ton of great franchises too. I'm hopeful that one that has a soft spot in my heart might get a box set treatment like this sometime soon. I don't even know if I want to put it out there because I don't know what kind of answer I'm going to get, and you probably can't give me an answer anyway. But I
are
feel
you?
like I feel like the Saw franchise is one that
Oh
just
man,
does not. I mean, it gets certain love out there for like Billy the Puppet,
yeah,
but I feel like it's one of the most consistently strong entries in the horror slasher franchise that there is.
yeah,
I love pretty much every single one of those movies, and I feel like every time a box set gets released for Saw, it just doesn't kind of it doesn't shine a spotlight on that franchise the way I want it to, I guess.
yeah,
And so I'm hoping that somewhere down the line we might get something for that, but fingers crossed for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I think that's tough because Saw and Wick, we haven't really done definitive box sets on
Hmm.
because the franchises are still kind of continuing to evolve.
Right.
And I know that feeling of like, you know, you make a 4 movie box set and then the fifth movie comes out. And, not to say that I don't know if there's going to be a fifth John Wick. God, I really hope there is.
Yeah. Fingers
Uh,
crossed for that too. Uh-huh.
I know at one point it was announced, and then like, man, they take a huge toll on Keanu. I don't know if he wants to do a fifth one,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't, then you know. So yeah, I can't comment on anything happening with Wick other than that Ballerina is definitely happening and
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, this year.
Um, so yeah, and then we're talking about the spinoff for the Kane character, Donnie Yen, um,
Mm,
which would be amazing. So
mhm.
yeah, we keep saying like, should we do a 4 movie collection, or is there going to be a 5th movie, or like these spin-offs? Like it's tough. So like if you got a John Wick four film collection and then a 5th movie came out, you'd be bummed. I know that's what happened when we did the book with the
Yeah,
3 movies in it. So
sure.
um,
I feel like
I
people have
love
strong
that release.
feelings. I feel like
Yeah,
people have strong feelings for that any way you go. Umbrella just put out a new box set for the Terrifier films. When the third one came out, they already had another one for the second one. But from what I've heard, that one's selling well for them. I think people who love the franchise enough, kind of
yeah,
like with me and getting all the versions of a certain steelbook that I love, if they love a franchise, they will continue to support that franchise and just buy box set after box set because, again, it's got original art. It's got the newest of the new. I think it falls on both
yeah,
camps. I don't think you're going to make anybody happy with whatever decision you make on that.
yeah, yeah. It's tough. Um, but I hear you on Saw, man. I
Hmm.
think if if you and more people um, start raising their voices more,
Hmm.
I hope that happens because um, 4K transfers are expensive and there's a lot
Sure.
of movies, and so I think if the powers that be at Lionsgate felt like there was a market for all of those in 4K, then we would absolutely do it. It's something that I know myself and a lot of other people have been pushing for a while.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of this, I one of your fellow colleagues, Lisa Stevenson, she was recently on a podcast
yeah,
from Let's Get Physical Media. She talked about the new Kickboxer 4K that recently came out and how that was really a labor of love for you trying to really make this one customer like really happy with their release.
yeah,
Would you want to go a little bit more into that and possibly like where people can kind of funnel their ideas for what releases they would love to have?
absolutely. Yeah, we do have an email which I'll give to you
Mhm.
that maybe you can add to the end.
Sure.
There's also a feedback or comment section on lionsgatelimited.com, and also like we do read Reddit. That it's funny, like the entire company really is on r/steelbooks, which is
Hmm.
so funny. Like I mentioned a while ago, back in the day when there were 5,000 people on it, there was this one meeting where I brought up that subreddit. I think it was just Toy Story, where like there was this very definitive Toy Story line look, for the steelbooks,
And then the
and
fourth
then
came out and totally destroyed it. Yes, I do know what
yeah,
exactly what you're
and I
talking
was
about.
in this meeting, and somebody was like talking about, I forget what release it was, and they're like, "Oh, nobody remembers that line. We can start fresh." And I was like, "I don't know. Does anybody see what was on Reddit? Like the whole steelbook community was really upset." And honestly, this was like this conference room full of 40 people, and
Hmm.
like all of them were laughing at me. And we're like, the steelbook community, Aaron. And honestly, like the change from then, that was what, 6 years ago.
Hmm.
Now, like the I would say I forget his new title. He was the president of home entertainment. He's going on that subreddit and pointing out what the steelbook community thinks. So it's like at the time it was considered like, you know, like why are you even looking there? And that's how a lot of the other studios still operate. Is like they know best and they're going to do it the way they've always done it. But that's really not the way it's been at Lionsgate. So honestly, like people making comments, those get read,
Hmm.
and honestly, like I think there are things um, that are just out of our control. Like a lot of people are making comments about price, and honestly, like I wish we could keep the price as low as we did at Best Buy, but
Hmm.
the economics of that are just not possible. Like, I mean, like eggs are more expensive than they used to be. Everything is more expensive, and steelbooks are no exception.
Right.
Where there's one manufacturer, the metal they use is more expensive, the shipping is more expensive. So all of the rates, like for pack out, every vendor that we use, they charge us more, and so we have to charge more, which sucks. I mean,
Mhm.
we've consistently tried to charge less than every other studio.
Right.
Like,
I know we talked about Disney, Sony stuff. Like their steelbook releases are like $65 now. I don't
yeah,
that's the hardest pill to swallow is that steep of an incline. I think
yeah,
we all kind of understand that like yeah, maybe we were having these releases when we were making more of these at Best Buy. They were X amount. And
yeah,
now that kind of went away, we had to change our approach, which means that prices have changed on our end. I think that's more that's an easier pill to swallow and more easy to understand, I guess. It's
yeah,
where you finally get to like the same thing I was paying $30 for is now double that.
yeah.
And that's just a bit of a head scratcher for me, and I still don't understand what justifies that price jump.
No, it's crazy. And I've seen people, say like, "Oh, well, now Lionsgate's making it themselves, so they get more profits. Like, how can they raise the price?" And it's like, no, that's absolutely not the case. Because
Hmm.
honestly, we were never set up to be this type of company that sells direct to consumers. So to
Yeah.
build the infrastructure for that, like we have to, to pay for a website and fulfillment and all of these additional costs that, it used to be we just made these things and shipped them to somebody else,
Hmm.
so there's definitely not more profit for us in it. Yeah, honestly, that's been like one of our commitments as a company is like, how can we make these things for as little as we can and sell them for as little as we can, which is crazy because, like I said, the art that we commission, that's not cheap.
Right. Hmm.
To do the approach that some of the other studios do that we were talking about before, where it's like you pick up the international poster and that's your cover. That's basically free. Where like
Hmm.
we're hiring artists. So no, honestly, like we're trying to build a brand and we're trying to grow a community around physical media, just because we love it and we want to keep it around and we want it to continue to grow and evolve.
Hmm. And I think you guys have done just that, just given the releases that you used to have and continue to have. You have a kind of a stamp of quality whenever you get a Lionsgate release. And now that you're going one step further and you're going to control every single aspect of the Steelbook, going from where you make it and shipping it directly to somebody's house, I think that is wonderful. I'm curious to see if, just like people did with the slipcovers on Steelbooks, if other larger companies decide to take the same route that you guys are going. And I'm just excited to see where Lionsgate Limited goes from here because I feel like there's so many different opportunities and avenues that you can just branch out and grow from this. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
me too, man. I mean, honestly, um, yeah, it's been a fun journey. So
Perfect.
um, yeah, I appreciate uh, I appreciate the enthusiasm that you have for this stuff, and all the collectors. Like, yeah, you mentioned Ken. Definitely follow Ken's channel.
Hmm.
It's funny. I was hoping we would win another Clio with Ken this year because we definitely submitted his video for Young Guns where he was talking about how much he loved Young Guns
Yeah.
and didn't get a Clio nomination for it.
Dang.
But yeah, we did get this one for American Psycho. So shout out to
Yeah.
Ken.
That release has done wonders. Like that, again, one of my favorite releases. But I do a entire series of swapping
Absolutely.
that slipcover over on something else. Has garnered millions of views for me, so I really have to thank you on that because I have such a blast switching those suckers over.
It's so funny when you do. Honestly, we get such a kick out of it. And so Justin Erickson, uh, part of the husband and wife duo at Phantom City Creative, he was really the driving force behind that. And so anytime you post a new one, me and him are just sending them back and forth. And he'll be like, "Oh, did you see this one?" Like he loves it.
Yeah. See,
Uh,
that's stuff I love to hear because when I create stuff and post it out there, it just kind of goes into a void, and I don't really know who's watching it or anything. So, kind of warms my heart to hear that like people within the industry that actually had a hand in making this stuff is actually enjoying the content that I make too. So that's wonderful.
the work that you've done to grow your channel or channels, you know, I'm old, so I'm primarily follow you on Instagram, but the fact that you're doing it on TikTok and have grown it on TikTok so big, like that's awesome.
Mhm.
Because if it doesn't get shut down in the next couple
In
of
a
weeks,
couple of
my
weeks,
fingers
yeah.
crossed,
Uh-huh.
that's the future. And like honestly, getting the younger generation into physical media, that's the real challenge. But I will tell you, like as the father of a 13-year-old, almost 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old, I think the future looks bright. Like my son, who's 11, he plays 8-bit and 16-bit video games.
Hmm.
And that's the stuff that he loves.
Mhm.
Um like, dude, we just played Final Fantasy 1 together over Christmas break and had a blast, which I played when I was his age. And so I think kids are realizing the value in in some of this older stuff
Mhm.
in a really inspiring way that I don't think was happening a few years ago, where like everything was like bigger, badder. You know, uh, the graphics, like I just read this story about Spider-Man, that the video game, like the graphics are insane, and they
Mhm.
sold 11 million units, and they still lost money
Yeah.
because they spent so much on it.
Right.
So it's like, um, yeah, I think consumer tastes are changing, and if we can get this new generation on physical media, then we can grow it, which would be awesome.
Nothing warms my heart more. My oldest is 9. When she
Okay,
comes down here to grab a movie from the shelf to go play, because now she's finally getting into the mode where she's not as scared of different certain movies as she was. Like when Beetlejuice came out, we went on a tear of 80s movies, like the original Beetlejuice and Gremlins, and she just loved
nice.
that stuff. And she would just pull it off the shelf and we would watch it together, and we'd watch all the special features afterwards too, because she likes to see how the stuff is made just like I do. Like
Yeah,
I'm hoping that the younger generation will continue to love and garner physical media. I'm trying not to push it on them, but again,
yeah,
I'm just like, I hope you like this. I'm
yeah,
hoping people your age like this specifically.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Dude, and you just touched on something else that Lisa Stevenson is in charge of, and that's our special features, and she does an
Hmm.
amazing job with that. Um, yeah, that's a huge part of it. I'm actually rewatching all the Lord of the Rings movies with my kids now, the extended editions, which
Hmm.
like now they have the attention spans for.
Right, right.
Um, and we were just watching some of the behind the scenes stuff last night after we finished the Two Towers, and it's like it's just their minds are blown by the like how some of this stuff gets done. And they just take for granted that like, oh yeah, the hobbits are just smaller than everybody, but then they see like this behind the scenes stuff of how they make that
It's the
happen,
best. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
they love it. So
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch Apocalypse Now yet, but I did watch The Conversation, and I
oh
love how you
nice.
guys have an introduction from Francis Ford Coppola before the movie plays. You can you change that option to click on that. Just so good to kind of see him talk about his movie 50 years after it originally came out. And
He's a
I guess
legend.
the last question I have, we've talked about Tarantino, we've talked a little bit about Coppola. You guys have a big focus on directors currently at
Yeah.
Lionsgate Limited. Do you continue? Are you going to continue to kind of go down that line and get kind of big name directors and kind of put a spotlight on them like you have so far?
Yeah, I hope so. I think the unfortunate thing is that we don't have um multiple releases by a lot of other directors. We have, in our library, there's a lot of Tarantino stuff, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of Coppola stuff. Um, we did the Limey with Steven Soderbergh, but I
Hmm.
don't think we have a lot of other Soderbergh movies. But I still think, on Lionsgate Limited, we are going to do director spotlights for even if, it's just one movie in our catalog.
Hmm.
Um, the craft behind these things, like it's amazing, and it should be celebrated.
Agreed.
So yeah, we'll definitely be doing more director spotlights.
Perfect. Well, even if in 2025 we get more 4K Tarantino down the road, I'm going to be a very very happy boy. 2025 is just the year of 4K Tarantino. That's going to make my entire year, honestly.
Oh man, I'm definitely going to get that Arrow release.
I highly suggest you do. It's packed with a whole bunch of goodies inside. I want to say they crafted like 7 different special features for it, including a couple essays, and normally when they do like pinpoints on interviews, it kind of,
Yeah,
I wish that they had more documentaries than interviews. These interviews feel like mini documentaries almost. So yeah,
that's awesome.
the release is great.
Let me ask you a question because you
Yeah.
just touched on something about like the goodies inside, and
Hmm.
I'm curious what's resonating with collectors and what do collectors feel like, oh, I don't want to spend like there's some people who really enjoyed the conversation that you
Hmm.
got all that stuff, and then there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I just want the steel book, I don't
Yes.
want um so for you, like art cards, booklets, like do you like that stuff, and like what are your favorite types of things to see in a release?
Um, Great question, Aaron.
Yeah,
Personally, for the majority of movies, I would just prefer to have the standard release. I don't have a lot of space anymore. So for me, as long as I have a nice beefy set with a lot of great special features on a standalone itself, just to slide into the collection, that's the route I would love to go with, unless it's a big movie that I would love. Like if you guys had a box set for all the Tarantino stuff, that would be
yeah,
something that I would love to dig into. But Umbrella does a great job over in Australia with packing their releases with physical goodies, like not just posters, because everybody does posters. I
yeah,
like you have posters hanging up behind you, but I don't have a lot of space to do that
right.
in my house. So I like having like replica props. Not enough
Yes,
people do that, but with the Inglorious Bastard set, it came with like a coaster from the bar that they go to and
yeah,
have the big shootout in. I love things that kind of give a more uniqueness. Like I can
in
get a
world items.
poster, yeah, I can get a poster anywhere, but if you give me like some type of prop or some type of unique item with it,
Yeah,
I love the idea of a playing card that kind of gives you the stats of everybody that had a hand on making all the special features and
right.
transfers and all that stuff. I think that sounds like a wonderful, more creative ideas like that. And Lionsgate is
Yeah.
kings at doing creativity right. So I know that you guys will kind of go crazy the longer Lionsgate Limited goes around with what you guys decide to do in your packaging and all the special goodies inside of it.
I appreciate it. And dude, I can relate. I have a chunk of amber with a mosquito in it over
Hmm.
there on my shelf. And then I have a lenticular photo of Marty McFly and his family, and they all disappear one by
That's
one.
great. That's great.
So yeah, and it's sized like it's like the actual photo.
Hmm.
Yeah, honestly, I totally hear you. Like in-world items, dude, I have so much weird Wes Anderson stuff over here. I've got a can of doggy chop from Isle of Dogs.
Mm,
Um, I have replicas of the notes that Sam and Susie write to each other from Moonrise Kingdom. Yeah, it's dude, I totally hear you.
yeah.
So
I love having
yeah,
physical goodies with my physical media. I can kind of like prop them around the collection, and that's just another way of my brain to be like, oh, a thing from a movie that I love.
yeah,
Yeah. It just, yeah.
yeah. Dude, honestly, my favorite thing that we've ever made is like some of this Wick stuff. I have like this little Wick shrine over there
Hmm.
that has all the coins. Like we made like the adjudicator coin, we made replicas of that, and we made replicas of the oath marker from the third movie. Um
I love the stash box you guys did too, because it looks like a
yeah,
prop from that third film. I thought that was genius.
absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
and honestly, like you can take the steelbooks out and you can put, all the other stuff in it, which is
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah,
Um
there's another release from Australia from Imprint about the never ending story, and it
oh
came
yeah,
housed in a giant book, a replica of that never ending story book. And
that's
for
great.
me, I would take the movie out and just put it in the collection and prop that giant book somewhere. But that's the originality that I love seeing happen more often with physical media, because I feel like companies are more gearing towards the collector's mindset, because that's really where
Yeah,
a good chunk of these sales are coming from. Like it's not your average consumer, it's more the collector base.
absolutely. Dude, I have a John Wick pencil over here. I saw my son doing his homework with it the other day, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Um, but yeah, I I I I love this stuff, man. I'm so glad that people like yourself are singing its praises, because you know otherwise there if without a community there would be no physical media.
Hmm.
Uh, so and you are absolutely one of the champions of this community, and so really grateful for everything that you do.
Thank you. I will continue to do so. I will be a foot soldier in the physical media army for as long as I can, Aaron. Well, yes. Well, very good. That seems like a great place to stop this. I appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
on the podcast. It's been wonderful having you on, and I can't wait to see what you guys have up your sleeve for 2025 on Lionsgate Limited and just other releases. I always get a kick out of whatever you guys decide to actually release and showcase. And yeah, you guys are doing a heck of a job.
Appreciate you, Jake. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. This has been episode number 42 of Boutique Talk. Thanks for watching, everybody. And until next time, I'll see you.